Rachel is a beautiful woman, turning 30 this year. She lives with her husband, David, in a small house in a quiet neighborhood. Rachel's life seems so ordinary it feels boring. She often feels trapped in an endless cycle, waking up in the morning, going to work, coming home in the afternoon to cook, and then sleeping. Although David is always gentle, caring, and attentive to her needs, Rachel still cannot find true happiness. David, Rachel's husband, is a handsome, calm, and intelligent man. She believes that David is just an ordinary office worker, earning enough to sustain their modest life together. Rachel often wonders why David spends just enough to buy the things she needs but never splurges on himself and always chooses to live a simple life. Rachel once dreamed of grand things, luxurious trips to high-end destinations, but David never mentioned such plans. He always opted for short trips and modest restaurants, which made Rachel feel like life was losing its meaning. Rachel began to feel emotionally neglected by David. Even though he was always calm and treated her well, Rachel felt that he was too distant, especially when it came to matters of the heart. He rarely showed passion or warmth in their love, something Rachel had always longed for in a partner. David often came home late after work, always explaining it was due to work pressures. However, Rachel started to grow suspicious. She couldn't understand why an ordinary office worker would need to work such long hours. She felt the gap between her and her husband widening day by day. During this time, Rachel met Alex, the director of the company where she worked. Alex was a handsome, charming, and confident man who had a way of making women feel cherished and loved. He began to show special attention to Rachel, and she felt as though her heart had been revived. One day, after work, Alex suggested taking Rachel out for coffee. At first, she hesitated, but Alex, with his smooth way of talking, made her feel at ease and cheerful. In the end, she decided to accept the invitation. The meeting at the coffee shop marked the beginning of an unusual relationship. Alex was a romantic, a good listener, and someone who made Rachel feel truly cared for. He knew exactly what to say to make her feel valued, and she began to feel as if she were reliving the youthful days of being pursued and adored. Rachel started to grow distant from David. She spent less time at home, often making excuses to stay late at work or to run errands so she could spend time with Alex. Life with David became increasingly dull in Rachel's eyes, while she became captivated by the excitement and attention Alex brought into her life. David began to notice the changes in Rachel. She was often absent from home, frequently claiming she was busy with work. Unlike before, Rachel became distant and no longer showed any care or affection toward David. The sparkle in her eyes and the warmth of her smile were gone, replaced by a cold and distracted demeanor. David had once suspected something was amiss, but now he was certain something was seriously wrong. Despite the pain, he decided to hire a private investigator to follow Rachel. David needed the truth, even if it meant breaking his heart. The investigator returned with undeniable evidence. Rachel was having a secret affair with Alex. She had lied to David about her work and betrayed his trust. David felt as if his heart had been torn apart, but he refused to react with anger or seek revenge. Instead, he chose to keep everything to himself and began devising a plan to confront Rachel and Alex. A plan that no one could have anticipated. He knew that his intelligence and composure would be his greatest weapons in dealing with this betrayal. David took time to carefully think things through. He knew that confronting Rachel and Alex directly could lead to undesirable consequences, especially with emotions running high. Instead of acting impulsively, David decided to continue observing and gathering more information. He wanted to fully understand the nature of Rachel and Alex's relationship, as well as Alex's true character. Each evening, David returned home with a calm demeanor, making sure Rachel wouldn't suspect that he knew everything. He paid attention to every subtle change in her behavior, the secret phone calls, the late-night messages, and the evasive glances. None of it escaped David's notice. He realized that Rachel was completely engrossed in her relationship with Alex. which broke his heart even more. David hired the detective to keep tracking Alex, and what they uncovered gave him a more comprehensive view of the man. Alex was ambitious but had significant vulnerabilities, especially in terms of finances. This discovery sparked an idea in David's mind. He knew that if he wanted to deal with Alex effectively, he had to target those weaknesses. One afternoon, David decided to arrange a meeting with Alex. He didn't reveal his true identity, instead introducing himself as a potential business partner interested in discussing a significant investment project. Alex, eager for any new opportunity to make money, quickly agreed to the meeting. David chose a luxurious restaurant for their encounter. As Alex walked in, he had no idea that the man waiting for him was Rachel's husband, dressed in an elegant suit. David exuded confidence and authority, leaving Alex visibly impressed. They began their conversation with polite small talk, and David skillfully steered the discussion to learn more about Alex. Throughout the meeting, David observed that Alex presented himself as confident but was, in reality, overly ambitious and impatient. Alex constantly sought to prove his worth, boasting about his achievements and future plans, completely unaware that David was scrutinizing every word. David maintained a calm demeanor, attentively listening without giving away any hint of his knowledge about Alex's affair with Rachel. After the meeting with Alex, David decided it was time to confront Rachel. One evening, as Rachel returned home, David invited her to sit down for a talk. He wasn't angry, didn't raise his voice. He simply looked her in the eye and asked calmly, "Is there something you want to tell me, Rachel?" Rachel was taken aback, unsure of what David was referring to. She tried to remain composed but couldn't hide her nervousness. David continued, "I know everything about you and Alex. I've known for a while, but I wanted to hear it from you." David's words hit Rachel like a punch to the gut, leaving her stunned. She couldn't believe that David had discovered the truth. Rachel began to cry, apologizing and attempting to explain that she had felt lonely and emotionally neglected. She confessed that Alex had made her feel loved in a way she hadn't felt with David. But David remained silent, listening without interrupting. When she finished, he said calmly, "I've heard what you've said, but it doesn't change the fact that you betrayed me." David decided not to rush into filing for divorce. Instead, he wanted Rachel and Alex to fully understand the consequences of their betrayal. Leveraging his connections, David began interfering in Alex's business dealings. Investment deals that Alex had been pursuing started to fall apart. Partners suddenly withdrew, and Alex's company found itself in financial trouble. Rachel noticed that Alex was becoming increasingly stressed and less attentive to her. He was no longer the romantic, charming man she once knew. Instead, Alex grew irritable and quick-tempered, weighed down by the mounting financial pressures. Rachel began to realize that her relationship with Alex was not what she had imagined. The allure and glamour he once projected were nothing more than a facade. David maintained his calm demeanor with Rachel. He did not reproach her or display hatred, but silently observed her changing behavior. He knew that Alex's downfall would be the greatest lesson for Rachel, and he wanted her to recognize her mistakes on her own, without him having to spell them out. Over time, Rachel came to understand that she had lost an incredible husband in pursuit of superficial thrills. Now, she was left to face the consequences of her betrayal. Realizing the heavy price she had to pay for her actions, David decided to take his plan a step further. He knew that to make Alex and Rachel truly understand the gravity of their mistakes, he had to leverage the vast network of connections he had built over the years. David had friends and business partners ranging from successful entrepreneurs to high-ranking officials, people Alex couldn't even fathom. David began using his influence to put pressure on Alex's business partners. The deals Alex was pursuing didn't just fall apart because of partner withdrawals. They were also hindered by David's subtle interventions. Some of the companies Alex was collaborating with suddenly faced financial difficulties, rendering them unable to invest in his projects. Contracts were canceled, agreements delayed, and Alex's company spiraled further into chaos. Rachel couldn't ignore the changes in Alex. He seemed to have no time for her anymore, always engrossed in his work and consumed by worries about his company's precarious state. The romantic dates were gone, replaced by constant arguments and endless complaints. Rachel began to feel regret. She realized that Alex's charm had only been surface deep and that beneath it was a man driven by ambition, endlessly chasing money and power without regard for anyone else. David's strategy was working, and Rachel was slowly beginning to see the true nature of her choices. Rachel gradually realized that she had lost something incredibly precious. David, the husband who had always loved and cared for her, had been the one to bring her stability and peace. In contrast, Alex, whom she once believed to be her future, had only brought her insecurity and heartache. Rachel began to wonder if she could return to David and whether he could ever forgive her. One evening, Rachel decided to come home early and cook dinner for David, something she hadn't done in a long time. When David walked through the door, he saw Rachel in the kitchen preparing a meal. She greeted him with a smile, one filled with remorse and hope. David was surprised but remained composed. He sat down at the dining table, silently observing Rachel. She began to apologize, admitting her mistakes and pleading for another chance to make things right. David didn't respond immediately. He looked deeply into Rachel's eyes and said, "I need time to think. Betrayal isn't something that's easily forgiven. But I'm not shutting the door on us completely. I want to see you change, to see genuine remorse, and to understand the value of this family." Rachel understood that she would need to do much more to regain David's trust. She realized that an apology was just the first step and that she needed to prove through her actions that she was truly willing to change and repair the damage she had caused. Meanwhile, Alex's company continued to face mounting difficulties. The strategic partners he once relied on had turned their backs, and investments were steadily withdrawn. Alex fell into a state of despair. He was no longer the confident, charming man Rachel once knew. The pressures of work and continuous failures made Alex tense and quick to anger. He stopped spending time with Rachel and even blamed her for the troubles he was facing. Rachel felt deeply confused and disappointed. She realized that her relationship with Alex had lost all meaning. The sweet words and romance that once captivated her were now things of the past. What remained was a weak man who constantly blamed his circumstances and never took responsibility for his own mistakes. Rachel decided to end her relationship with Alex. She could no longer endure the insecurity and misery it brought. Rachel returned to David and tried to spend more time with him. She knew she had to put in tremendous effort to regain his trust. She began to pay attention to the little things in his life, making a conscious effort to create moments of happiness to make up for the pain she had caused. One day, Rachel decided to ask David about his meeting with Alex. She wanted to know what he had said and why things had turned so disastrous for Alex. David looked at Rachel for a long moment before deciding to reveal the truth. He explained that he met Alex not to threaten or seek revenge but to better understand the man. He had realized that Alex was overly ambitious and selfish, which led him to use his network to make Alex confront his own limitations. Rachel was stunned to learn who David truly was. She had never imagined that her seemingly modest husband wielded such power and influence. She realized how blind she had been, chasing superficial things while neglecting the true value of love and family. Rachel felt more regret than ever and resolved never to lose David again. David saw the remorse and effort in Rachel, and he knew she genuinely wanted to change. Though forgiveness wouldn't come easily, he was willing to give her a chance. He said, "I'll give you the chance to prove that you're truly sorry. I want us to rebuild from the beginning, but it won't be easy. You'll need to show it through your actions, and I'll be here to see if you can really do it." Rachel smiled through her tears, knowing the road ahead would be long and challenging. But she was ready to face it all to stay with the man she truly loved. She realized that true love wasn't about extravagant promises but about sincerity and trust between two people. Rachel realized that she needed to truly change if she wanted to save her marriage. Each day, She started with renewed determination. She learned to take care of David and pay attention to the smallest details in his life. She prepared breakfast for him, carefully arranged his clothes, and created romantic moments she had once overlooked. Rachel also began coming home earlier, spending more time with David. She made an effort to rekindle small conversations, learn about his work, and understand the challenges he was facing. David began to notice Rachel's changes, but he remained cautious. He wanted to be sure that her transformation was genuine and not just temporary. One evening, Rachel decided to organize a romantic dinner at home. She prepared David's favorite dishes and set the table with candles and flowers. When David walked through the door, he saw Rachel smiling softly, her eyes filled with hope. David felt his heart soften, though he couldn't easily forget the pain Rachel had caused. However, he recognized her genuine effort, and that gave him a reason to start believing in her again. One afternoon, David decided to take Rachel for a walk in the park where they used to go when they were newlyweds. They strolled in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. After a long while, David turned to Rachel and said, "I've thought a lot about us. I see that you're trying to change, and I truly appreciate that. But you need to understand that for me to fully forgive you, it will take time and sincerity from both of us." Rachel looked up at David, tears streaming down her face. She nodded and said, "I understand. I know I was wrong, and I will do whatever it takes for you to trust me again. All I want is to be by your side and rebuild our family." David took Rachel's hand, and they continued their walk without saying another word. David's words felt like a glimmer of hope for Rachel. She knew she still had a chance, and she couldn't afford to waste it. Determined, she resolved to do everything in her power to win back David's love and trust. Rachel began her journey of redemption with unwavering seriousness. She completely severed contact with Alex, blocking all communication channels and cutting ties with him entirely. She also took the proactive step of resigning from the company where she had met Alex, determined to distance herself from the painful memories and start fresh. Rachel found a new job, simpler but allowing her more time to focus on David. Each day, Rachel sought to bring something new into their lives. She invited David to watch movies together, took weekend walks by the beach, and sometimes simply enjoyed quiet evenings reading books at home. She wanted to rebuild, little by little, the beautiful memories that had been overshadowed by her betrayal. David began to feel his heart opening up to Rachel again. He could see her sincerity and determination to change, and it touched him deeply. He started to believe that perhaps they could rebuild everything from the ground up. One evening, David decided to share his thoughts with Rachel. "I want us to let go of the past and start over. But you have to promise me that you will never make the same mistake again. Family is the most important thing to me, and I want us to protect it together." Rachel was overwhelmed with emotion, tears streaming down her face as she embraced David tightly. She said, "I promise, I will never do anything to hurt you again. I love you, and I will do everything I can to make you happy." Their journey to heal and rebuild their marriage had truly begun. Rachel and David decided to spend more time together. They traveled to places Rachel had once dreamed of visiting. But this time, it wasn't about glamour or luxury as she had previously desired. Their trips were simple yet filled with meaningful memories and laughter. David saw that Rachel was no longer the woman drawn to superficial glitz but had matured into someone who truly valued what she had. Rachel, too, realized that happiness didn't come from extravagance but from the peace of being with the one she loved. She learned to love David with all her sincerity and appreciation, and she could feel his love gradually returning to her. David slowly forgave Rachel. He no longer held onto the pain she had caused but focused on building their future together. They started making new plans, even discussing having children, something they had never talked about before because of the emotional distance between them. One morning, Rachel woke up to see David sitting by the window, gazing outside. She walked over and gently placed her hand on his shoulder. David turned to her, smiled, and said, "I think we've come a long way, and now it's time we consider growing our family." What do you think? Overcome with emotion, Rachel's eyes filled with tears of happiness. She nodded and embraced David tightly. She knew they had overcome all their challenges and could now embark on a new journey together, a life filled with love and hope. Rachel understood that love wasn't always perfect, but sincerity and effort could help them overcome anything. The love between Rachel and David was reborn, stronger and more genuine than ever. They learned to love each other all over again, this time not with grand promises but with sincerity, trust, and simple yet meaningful moments together. Rachel and David began a new chapter in their lives with hopes of building a complete family. They decided to visit the doctor together for health checkups and to discuss their plans for having a baby. Rachel had always dreamed of having a child, but she had never voiced it before, knowing there were still unresolved wounds between them. Now, with David's forgiveness and their rekindled love, she felt the time was right to start a real family. Rachel changed her lifestyle, adopting a healthier diet and exercising regularly. She wanted her body to be in the best condition to welcome a new life. David also became more attentive, caring deeply about Rachel's health and constantly encouraging her. Every day, they shared the joy and excitement of imagining their future with a child. They both understood that their child would symbolize their love and the effort they had put into overcoming past difficulties. One day, Rachel told David the news that she was pregnant. David was overwhelmed with happiness. He embraced Rachel tightly, unable to hide his emotions. This was the moment they had been waiting for, a turning point in their lives. Together, they began preparing for their child's arrival, decorating the nursery, learning how to care for a baby, and sharing every step of the journey. They were filled with hope and excitement, knowing this new chapter would be a beautiful testament to their resilience, love, and renewed commitment to each other. As time passed, Rachel and David spent most of their days preparing for the arrival of their baby. Together, they repainted the small room in their house, transforming it into a cozy nursery with soft, gentle colors. They shopped for baby essentials, from adorable cribs to tiny, cute outfits. Every time Rachel saw David awkwardly trying to pick out baby items, she couldn't help but smile with happiness. She realized that David had truly opened his heart and was ready to be an amazing father. David also joined Rachel in attending prenatal classes. Together, they learned how to care for a baby, how to change diapers, bathe a newborn, and soothe a crying baby. They felt these experiences not only boosted their confidence but also deepened their bond. David, who had once been distant and reserved, had become more gentle and attentive than ever. He wasn't just Rachel's husband but also her companion on the journey to parenthood. One evening, after returning from a prenatal class, David looked at Rachel with loving eyes and said, "I'm truly grateful for you, Rachel. You've helped me understand the real meaning of family. We've been through so much, and I believe that from now on, we'll only have happiness ahead of us." Rachel smiled, feeling the love and determination in David's words. She knew they were ready to face whatever lay ahead together. The day Rachel and David had been eagerly waiting for finally arrived. Early one morning, Rachel began showing signs of labor, and David immediately rushed her to the hospital. He stayed by her side the entire time, holding her hand tightly and encouraging her throughout the labor. The hours were filled with tension and anticipation, seeming to stretch endlessly, but their love and determination carried them through. At last, the first cries of their baby filled the room, and both Rachel and David were overcome with tears of joy. They looked at their child, a beautiful, healthy baby girl, and knew that she was the embodiment of their love and the relentless effort they had made to heal and rebuild their lives. David leaned down, kissed Rachel on the forehead, and said, "Thank you for giving me such an incredible gift. You did amazing, and I'm so proud of you." Rachel felt David's deep emotion as she looked at him and their baby, and she knew that this was the true happiness she had always longed for. All the hardships, pain, and betrayal were now a thing of the past. What remained was love, forgiveness, and the joy of having a complete family. Life for Rachel and David after the birth of their daughter was filled with joy and laughter. Their baby girl, whom they named Emily, became the center of their world. Together, Rachel and David cared for Emily, with each day bringing new and exciting experiences. From sleepless nights tending to their baby, to clumsy diaper changes, and Emily's precious first moments, everything reminded them that all the challenges of the past had been worth it. David realized that forgiveness and compassion not only helped him regain his loving wife but also allowed him to build a happy family. He understood that love is not always smooth sailing, but what truly matters is that both partners face the challenges together. The events of the past had taught both him and Rachel that love requires patience, understanding, and sacrifice from both sides. Rachel, too, learned much from her mistakes. She realized that happiness doesn't lie in luxury or fleeting relationships but in sincerity and trust between two people. She knew how fortunate she was that David had given her a second chance, and she was determined never to hurt him again. One afternoon, while the family was walking in the park together, Rachel looked at David and Emily with eyes full of love. She said to David, "I know we've been through so many ups and downs, but I feel so lucky to have you and Emily by my side. I promise to always love and cherish this family. Nothing is more important to me." David smiled, took Rachel's hand, and replied, "Me too. We've learned so much, and now we'll build an even better future together." With Emily's arrival, Rachel and David had truly found happiness. They understood that love, like a child, must be nurtured and cared for with sincerity, patience, and sacrifice. Their lives were no longer just about the two of them. They had become a real family, where love and trust always prevailed. Their love was reborn, stronger than ever, and they knew now that they could overcome anything as long as they had each other. And that was the ultimate lesson. True love isn't about the absence of mistakes, but about how we overcome those mistakes together to move forward.